Perceive, process, perform. Do you need inspiration for your practice, or do you simply need to practice inspiration? With this series, we aim to do both. Give us 15 minutes and we'll give you practice inspiration.
Kirk Behrendt has invested his entire professional life to studying the top dental practices in the world and the leadership that guides them. As the founder of ACT Dental, his personal mission is to use up every ounce of his potential.
Hi, my name is Kirk Behrendt, and this is my practice inspiration. Having a great dental practice, one of the things that you find is that as your practice grows, you're looking for ways to experience more joy in the way that you practice. And a lot of times people are looking for answers. I used to think that money was one of the most important things that made people happy, and it does help to a certain degree, but when you reach a certain status or energy in your practice, the one thing that keeps you happy now is no longer money. It's called predictability. The more predictability you have in a practice and as a dentist, the happier you will be. You'll find, and what we find are some of the unhappiest practitioners anywhere, they have very low levels of predictability. They don't know what's going to happen today. Sometimes the schedule stays together. Sometimes it falls apart. Sometimes people pay. Sometimes they don't pay. The more predictability and consistency you have, the happier you'll be. And I always tell people the one way, the quickest way to get any predictability in your life is you create what are called systems. Now, systems run your business. Very important to understand when building a dental practice, systems run the business. Sometimes people think, dentists think, well, people run the business. People run the systems. And as a dentist, when you build a dental practice or you're a team building a dental practice, when you have a systems-driven practice, you're going to find a couple things. Number one, the costs of the practice always fall a little bit more in line because it's not so people-dependent. And the danger of having a people-dependent business is that, let's say you have Judy, and Judy up front runs the whole practice. And she, at least administratively, she knows how to talk to patients, she knows how to collect money. Judy does everything. She does everything in your practice. Well, then one day, Judy leaves and you freak out. So you go on dentalpost.net, Craigslist, you go everywhere trying to find another Judy. And the truth of it is, that's really not a good plan. When you have a great structure in place, not only does it help you prepare for any unexpected things like that to happen, but it also helps talented people excel in their jobs because they want to be given their best energy to the things that matter most. They don't want to be tasking. And I always tell people your systems are perfect. Right now, whether you know it or not, your systems are perfectly designed. So if people don't pay, you have a system. You have taught people don't pay. If people don't show up for their appointments, you've taught them it's okay. You don't have to show up for your appointment. We teach people how to treat us. We teach them how to pay. We teach them how to show up. And those thought processes or those systems help you scale. Now, when you were smaller, when you have a practice and you just get started, let's say you have one or two people in your practice, or maybe add a third team member, fourth team member. Remember when you had that? You could walk up to the front and you didn't have to have systems. You could just tell Judy at the front, just have her pay the $300 and then get her back, just get her back. But as you grow, you can't do that. Things have to be more predictable, not only for you, but for the patients. And one of the greatest modern marvels in all of the business world, you look at great brands that have built themselves and become very much a value-driven service like coffee. You look at Starbucks. Starbucks has one of the greatest business systems that's ever been designed, and it's on the side of a cup. If you look at the side of any Starbucks cup, you're going to see 6 different squares. Each one of them is a differentiating component of how coffee is made. There are over 87,000 combinations to a drink. If you've ever stood in line, here's how this works. Stand in line behind somebody who's ordering a drink and listen to them spill out the order. They'll say, can I have a grande half-calf no-whip caramel macchiato? Like if you asked me to make that, I think my head would just explode. But the person who takes your order, they scribble on the side of a cup and they pass it along to the person who's making the drink. They don't make eye contact, they don't talk to each other, and in some cases, I don't even think they know each other. But the person who makes the drink says, how is your day today? Are you having a good day? And they look at the cup and they make the drink almost perfectly every single time. Now, think about that. Some of the Starbucks in the United States can see 350 customers per hour. 350 customers an hour at 87,000 different possible combinations, and we can't even get our health history forms in the right place. The fact is, great businesses know they can only scale and do repeated quality efforts with systems. Systems drive your entire business. Now, if you look at anybody, let's even step out of the business. Let's take a look at successful people. Successful people in fitness, finance, business, even parenting. Parenting is one of my favorite things. As you raise kids, you always look to people that are successful in parenting because it's one of your most important jobs you ever do. And if you see people that are successful, it's very important. Always ask somebody who's successful the magic question. Here's the question, ask them. What is your secret? Because if they're really good at something, you can bet that they've worked extremely hard at something and they've learned a few lessons. You're gonna find that they usually have 1 or 2 or 3 secrets. And I was on a flight, on a Southwest flight, and I travel way too much, so I board with the A customers. I get into my seat, I have the aisle seat, and I see these 3 little girls coming down the aisle, and they all have their backpacks, waddling like little penguins. And it was the coolest thing. So all 3 girls couldn't have been any older than 7. So you saw the oldest one, then all the way down to the youngest one. All 3 of them go right to their seat. The mom directed them right to their seat. They sat behind the parents. That was fascinating. And the mom looks at all 3 kids and says, girls, sit down in your seats. They sat. Then she said, take off your backpacks. They took off their backpacks. She said, pull out your books. They pulled out their books. And then she looked at me and she said, read. And it was awesome. All 3 of them read. If you ever ridden on a plane, you're not trying to stare, but you're like, wow, that's awesome. Like, that's so fascinating. And so the plane takes off, and sure enough, I can't help myself. So the plane's getting going. I look at the woman who was the mom, and I said, I have to ask you this question. I saw that happen. I have 4 kids. I can't even get them to look straight. Like, how did you do that? It was amazing. And she said, oh, it's real simple. They work my system. I don't work their system. And I was like, got it, totally got it. Everybody has a secret. And a lot of times when you ask them what their secret is, it's some type of a system. Now there's 39 critical systems in any dental practice, 39 that make it work. Here's the important thing to understand about systems. Systems create the predictability you need in dentistry so that you can give your best energy to things that matter most. What makes your practice work most and gives its most power is when you give the energy it deserves from a relationship's aspect. And I always say task steals from relationship. Even when you're at home and you're tasking everywhere, it's stealing from the one thing you value the most. It's the people. And when your practice grows, there will always be more tasks. We have to systematize the tasks so we can look up and give the energy to things that matter most. Now, a great book that I love, I recommend it all the time, is called Checklist Manifesto, written by one of the world's greatest surgeons. His name is Atul Gawande. And the question they wanted to ask in the book, please read the book. I don't even think the word dentistry is mentioned in the book, but the book asks the fundamental question: how do we scale excellence in healthcare, primarily surgery in hospitals? And so what they did was they looked at how they could do that, and they found they could only do it through scaling by checklists and systems. If you look at adult cardiac surgery, anyone that's ever done adult cardiac surgery never ever skips a step. I don't care if they're just starting surgery or they've been doing surgery for more than 20 years. Ask any surgeon, you never skip a step. Because when you skip a step, 2 things happen. You get sued or people die. Now, Gawande says in the book, the reason we need checklists and systems is that when we get good at something, our ego takes over. And we think to ourselves, well, I've already done this. I do this all the time. And that's where the errors happen. There has to be huge predictability in which you're giving your energy to the things that matter most. And in surgery, it's performing the surgery. You look at the World Health Organization, even when there's an outbreak in influenza, people don't sit around and say, well, what should we do? There are very specific protocols that have to be followed every hour or people get sick. And pilots, when you get on a flight, every commercial airline in the United States has to do one very important discipline before they take off. It's follow the checklist or system. Most airplane crashes can be tied back to the pre-flight checklist and pilot error. And you think about it, there's over 5,000 commercial airliners in the air at one time in the US. Crazy important that it's highly predictable in that type of an environment. You look at surgical safety checklists, and most businesses that scale and do a great job always have systems. Now here's what research concludes. When you put a system in place, two things happen. Two that are primarily important to your happiness as a practice. The first thing that happens is you are always 3 times more efficient. Every system allows you to become more efficient. You look at digital x-rays. Even now, that's technology-based system, but it's a system that creates a higher level of efficiency. The second thing that happens when you put in a system is you're always 5 times more accurate. So when we put in systems, it isn't necessarily just, its primary benefit isn't that we can just give our energy to things that matter most. It's the product that we put together is extraordinarily consistent and more accurate. And I love, you see examples of this all the time. Now, I love Panera. Panera is one of my favorite because a lot of times if we're not going to Chick-fil-A on a Saturday, I can almost bet we're going to a Panera. Now I like Panera because you can get anything. If my kids want to have breakfast and I want to have lunch, everybody's happy, right? Now here's what happens in a Panera. You walk into a Panera and you usually look at some kid and you order your food and they give you a little buzzer and you walk down to the end and you look over the counter and you're like, what's going on? Hey, how are you doing? And I took this photo in a Panera one Saturday. And there was a kid working behind the counter, and his name was Jason. I'll never forget this. I go, hey, Jason. He goes, how do you know my name? I go, name tag. He's like, oh. And I said, hey, man, what's it like working at Panera? My kids are like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to the table. So I said to the kid behind the counter, I go, Jason, what's it like working at Panera? He goes, you know, it's only my second day. I go, your second day? He goes, yeah, it's my second day. I go, well, what's it like? He said, well, I'm learning all the systems. I can do all the checklists. Now, I took this photo, and you take a look at this photo. You can see his manager actually went in the back. So I go, hey, can I see it? He's like, oh yeah. So he gave me this entire systems manual, and I opened it up, and it was amazing. Every single thing they do, everything is systematized, and it has a checklist. I actually took photos. I got down to page 72. I took photos. I got all the way up to 72. The manager came back and he kicked me out, but I was able to get out with the whole entire well, almost the whole entire manual. It was so cool. And it was funny for me because I recognized that even their soups have to be measured temperature-wise every single hour. It is no mistake that they are good at what they do and they're able to scale. They can keep their costs low because they know what they're doing. Systems drive your business. Now, we have systems in our businesses and we also have systems in our homes. One of my favorite systems is if you don't have the system, you have to get it. It's called RPAC. Please get this. It is an app. It's free. Download it today. It's the single greatest app that has ever been created ever. Because remember, systems help us give our best energy things that matter most. And one of the energies that gets zapped at home if you have children is social media, or it's phones or tablets. There are so many of these new apps, and RPAC is our favorite. You download it, it's free. You and your spouse are the only ones that have the password, and you pair all of your children's devices to this app. It's awesome. So this is really disgusting, but I had 11 devices from our 4 children. I put them right on the counter. I paired them with the app. It's so cool. And you can shut them all down with the touch of a button. It's a system. Now I have pre-programmed dinner times, or not dinner times, but necessarily study times. You can pre-program everything where they know it'll just shut down. And you now maintain the control that you want. So that's just another example of a system. Because what systems do, again, is they give your best energy to the things that matter most. Because in a great dental practice, here's the truth of what has to happen. You have to do the things that only you can do as a dentist. Let me say that again. You have to do the things that only you can do. And as a dentist, there are primarily 2 or 3 things, depending on the state, that only you can do. One of them is prep, another one is diagnosis, and a third might be anesthesia. When you spend 90% of your time doing what you do best, that's where the energy comes alive. And when you look at the rest of the things that you do in your business, those all have to be systematized. Again, you can stay in the zone. And here's how this works. If you're watching what I want, or you're listening, I want you to draw a circle. This is a great exercise because if you do this exercise, You can double your business in no time, but it's hard to do. So draw a big circle. And in that circle or outside of the circle, I want you to write the words, everything you do. Now, I got this from my coach. His name is Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach in Toronto. And he taught me this, and it actually transformed our entire business, and it can transform any dental practice. So draw a big circle, write the words, everything you do. Inside, in the middle, I want you to draw a small, tiny circle. And in that circle, I want you to write the words, unique ability. Your unique ability is the one thing or the two things that only you can do. It's the gifts that you've been given. That's why you're here. Now, you have to determine what your unique ability is, but you can take a guess as to what that might be. Then I want you to draw 2 more circles. So you're gonna have a little bullseye like this. And this is a great diagram you can keep in front of you throughout the course of your day because it will promote the happiness that you need. In this center ring, outside of the center ring, I want you to write the words excellent because there are things that you do that you're excellent at. You're really good at them. You're excellent, but somebody else could do them, right? The next ring, I want you to write the word competent. Because there are things that you could do that you do them, and you're competent at them. But I guarantee you someone else can be a whole lot better at them. And then lastly, write this, put this out there. It's called incompetent. There are things that you do in your business that you should never do, ever. Like I am the worst courier ever. Meaning carrying things from one place to another. A lot of times people will give me a check and I'll put it in my jacket and the dry cleaner will give it back to me. And I'm thinking, well, I should not be doing it. I am also another example of something that I'm really good at. I'm very competent at this. I'm very good at QuickBooks. Very good. Like I could spend 3 hours getting it all right, but it takes me 3 full hours to do it. I'm quite confident somebody else could do it. Now here's what I want you to do with this diagram. And this is why systems are so important. Immediately stop doing the things that you're incompetent at. Because not only will you get better at them, at what you do best, but it'll free up so much energy. The second I saw this diagram, I stopped doing the things I was incompetent at. The next step is to look closely at the things that you're really competent at and then see how you might be able to systematize them or give them to somebody else. And your goal as a restorative dentist or a specialist for the rest of your career is try to stay in your circle. And I love that circle. Now that circle can be excellence and unique ability, but the highest producers and the happiest, and I'll use the word joy is usually the word, they're most joyful when they're staying in the inner circle. And I want to show you one last thought as we conclude. Pete Dawson actually gave me this slide. And he called it his circle of productivity. Now, his circle, when he showed this to me, I thought to myself, that's pretty powerful. The circle of productivity is this. He said, Kirk, you have to keep your dentist, the people that do what they do and they love what they do, keep them in the circle 90% of the time. And it's not about tooth dust. It's not about cranking out teeth. It's about their focus. It's about their energy. It's about their listening. When their brain and their heart is in that circle 90% of the time, you'll see a joyful dentist and you'll also see a wildly productive dentist. So I'm going to leave you with one last image. Stay in your circle. It is never a good idea for the dentist to get outside of the circle, walk up to the front and say, hey, did she pay? At the front, if the dentist comes out of the circle, put up this little hand signal and go back to your circle. This hand signal is better than some other hand signals that you can give, but stay in your circle. The important thing is this, when you're in your circle and you have the right systems, you can give the best energy to the things that matter most. That's my practice inspiration for you.